Hard jelly tips.
Christmas on the beach.
Jet planes.
Pavlova.
Triblis.
Gene Bannon.
Bungee jumps.
Here we are, trying to outdo each other on YNZ's the best. Feel free to go outside and enjoy the view. We'll be a while.
Dan Carter's Undie campaign.
Welcome to Southland Mirahiku in New Zealand's Deep South, a region renowned for its unmatched beauty. This week it provides a natural playground for New Zealand's best road cyclists in the 66th edition of the SBS Bank Tour of Southland. Over 7 days we will see all the Deep South has to offer, starting and finishing in Invercargill, a city transforming for the future, through fertile farmland, the rugged south coast, the beauty of Fiordland and the majestic remarkables in Queenstown, all to push the country's top road cyclists to their absolute limit. 126 riders, 21 teams, over 860 kilometres and one winner. This is the 2022 SBS Bank Tour of Southland. Defending champion Michael Vink will be the most watched man in the field of 2022. The Cantabrian joined a very select club last year, earning his third Tour of Southland title in just 4 years, where he laid down the gauntlet early thanks to a brilliant solo ride to grab victory in Stage 2, and with it the Tour leader's yellow jersey, a lead that was never threatened for the rest of the week. Vink and his teammates face a challenging title defence this year, however. After 2 COVID-impacted years, international riders return to a bulging field of 21 six-person teams, all with the aim of etching one of their riders' names on the Tour trophy on Saturday afternoon. That battle commenced on Sunday as the Tour started in its new opening day format with a single lap team's time trial prologue followed by a 10-lap Stage 1 around Queen's Park in central Invercargill. Pleasant conditions greeted the riders and Creation Signs Mito Q took advantage, claiming first blood, winning the prologue and putting George Jackson into the yellow jersey. But that was merely the entree as the field lined up just hours later for Stage 1, a 42-kilometre punch around the park. A group of 6 riders, including the yellow jersey, managed to establish a break during the middle stages, which got out to as much as 39 seconds, before the peloton started to slowly reel them back in to set up a frenetic final lap to decide Stage 1.
So this lead group of 6 riders now approaching the bow lap around Queen's Park as part of the 10 laps of the Langland stage here in Invercargill on day 1 of the tour. And they've got a reasonable sort of a gap, but the peloton are trying to chase them down as these guys make their way down through Queen's Drive, and there is a lot of effort going on the front there. That would be the likes of Alex Henia, a former stage winner. This man knows all about the tour in those blue colours there. He has absolutely been trying to drive things along with Cranich now just up in front of him, and the local man in the orange colours for the Share the Road, Macaulay Ford. That, of course, is Zenovich, who knows these roads day in and day out. And, of course, there in the green colours, the Mita Q colours, is the man Ben Oliver, the silver medalist from the Commonwealth Games. Already part of the team time trial this morning where they took that out. Could they take a second stage for the day as we look back to the chasing peloton with the yellow towards the front? Making their way down Herbert Street here and halfway along down this back straight towards Southland Boys High School, and this team of riders here are driving things as Hayden slips off the front. Now this is the sort of guy you would not like to give too much of a gap on here. He is a very good time trialist. He has won multiple time trials in the Masters division. He is always in the hot seat when it comes to the final day of the individual time trial, but they've allowed him to slip off the front and he's looking over his shoulder a few times there. Is this going to be a bit of a move that could potentially take out a stage? Hence why we see Oliver now, the mountain biker, out of the seat doing the Fred Astaire to try and chase it down here. These guys are starting to look a bit weary. I think the fatigue factor is starting to set in. They've been off the front at a very high pace, sitting at close to some 60k an hour around the streets of Invercargill here as they swing up into Calvin Street. A traditional finish around Queen's Park on the first and last days of every one of the tours of Southland here as these riders reassemble themselves. They've brought back Hayden. That was a good move. He's a very strong rider indeed here to try and keep a very close eye on. But this cat and mouse now will be playing into the hands of the chasing peloton, who are now starting to shut it down to under 20 seconds. Going through at the bell, they hit about 25. Now it's starting to come down to about 18 seconds as these guys look left, right and centre, lining themselves up. They're thinking about a stage victory, but also potentially for a yellow jersey. For Ben Oliver, of course, he's already got his teammate George Jackson in the yellow jersey from this morning, so he's just really thinking seriously about, can we take ourselves out another stage? Meanwhile, a few of them just waiting patiently, but are they going to leave this too late here, because they are starting to bear down on them. Remember, there is 126 riders, 6 of them here at the front. 120 are chasing them down here in the 66th edition here of the SBS Bank Tour of Southland. And here we go, a bit of hesitation. Hayden hits off the front once again, and he's starting to open it up. It's 30, it's 40, it's 50, it's 80 metres now on this chasing group here. Are they going to react in time? It looks like they're going to be a bit slow on it. Heaney's out of the seat. He starts to wind it up. Kranich is waiting patiently. He wants someone else to try and shut it down. Meanwhile, the man out in front, Hayden's opening it up, and he's into time trial mode. We've already said it. This man is very strong. He's quite happy to go against the clock. He won't be too concerned. He wouldn't want to leave it to a sprint finish. He's won the silver jersey a couple of times on the tour, but can he take himself out of stage as they head up into Gala Street? And Glenn Hayden looks to have made a serious move here that could put him right to the top of the podium. Could he also take the yellow jersey as Oliver bounces out of the bunch to try and shut it down? Hayden, he's chewing on the handlebars. He wants to take this one. Can he get it for Copeland's? And it looks like he's going to. And the Copeland's Booth Group get their first stage victory here this year, followed by Ben Oliver. The rest of them just quite content to be there at the finish as the yellow jersey comes on through to see that his teammate has got himself right up in contention. But Glenn Hayden, what an outstanding effort here into Queen's Park. It's been a massive day here for the Creation Science Mitre Q team, with Ben Oliver into the yellow jersey, his teammate Sam Ritchie into the under 23, and they've also got the Harcourt Sprint Ace to boot.
Bit surprised to get it yesterday, but for how everyone's going, it's just wicked. And yeah, a year on the mountain bike, it kind of just feeds into this, and do a decent amount of road training, and got home and just freshened up, and then had a month to get in some Ks and go on some group road rides instead of training by myself. So no, it's been wicked in the build up to this. It's real good weather, doesn't look like to be too much wind, so be interesting to see how it plays out. And yeah, it's a long week, so we'll see who wants to show themselves today.
To be fair, I think the wind is certainly a lot more of a factor. I think the gravel's definitely hard, but I think you're still on the wheels, you can still follow, and it's relatively short. Being late in the stage is good. It means if anyone is tired, they could be suffering a wee bit, but it's more a case of you can definitely lose the tour today rather than win it.
Fantastic weather here in Invercargill as 126 riders. 21 teams, Doug. This is phenomenal to see after the borders have opened up, after all the restrictions for the last few years.
There's a lot of folk who have been waiting a long time to ride this race, and the last few years, of course, has sort of curtailed that. Here we have a close-up on the local rider, young Hunter Goff from the BJ Carter's team. The passion that we saw at the start from the school kids, and the school kids that line the route of this SBS Bank Tour is just fantastic. It's one of the real talking points from a lot of the riders as they go round.
Great graphic there of today's stage of 166 kilometres for these riders. There's a few undulations further out as they make their way out towards Western Southland, but of course the big talk of the time is the gravel section, followed by a few decent sort of climbs as well after that, as we saw last year, as the riders start to set themselves up for some of these early preems.
And you can just see there the yellow jersey on the shoulders of Ben Oliver from the Mitre Q Creation Science team. He's keeping out of trouble. Is the points jersey wearer as well? Of course, you can't wear two jerseys, so he forfeits that green jersey and wears the yellow jersey in this stage.
And of course, it was the former winner of the green jersey a few years ago, Nick Kirkazoo, recently returned from Paris as a part of the elite squad in the track there. He rode the Kilo at the World Track Championships as well as the Team's Pursuit, and he's in the mix once again here, Doug, as they head down into the township of Thornbury to try and pick himself up some maximum points.
Yeah, it's all guns blazing. The Transport Engineering Southland Deep South team really have come out with intent. They're driven, of course, by Michael Vink. He's here to win this race. But you can see there, Nick Kurgazu, what an outstanding rider. We've seen him this year at the Com Games. We've really witnessed a lot of huge performances over the years, and I think Nick is a guy who could really, vie for higher honours in this race.
Interesting to see some of the riders that are disappearing off the front a little bit here. Goff, once again, he's getting himself in amongst the leading riders as a bit of a break happens, which often does after some of these preems here in the early stance here of this particular stage. But of course, more importantly, it's the yellow jersey that a number of riders have allowed to head off. Also, it looks like the Jesco Hydraulics King of the Mountains there in the mix as well. Yeah,
the group here, we're at the back of the peloton here. You can see it's still all together. The wind conditions are favourable for that. Starting to split up a wee bit now through the lumps and bumps coming out of Thornbury. But once again, it's Ben Oliver from the Creation Science Mitre Q team. He's at the front, he's staying out of trouble, driving things along, keeping a good look at it, and it's starting to split up a wee bit out there.
Yes, the intentions are quite clear from the Creation Science Mitre Q. They've said over the last couple of days here, they're out to try and stir this race up and pick up as many points, as many dollars, as many jerseys as they possibly can. And this is certainly being shown here today as they start to head off very early on in the stage. But no sign of the defending champion, Michael Vink. Also Hornblow, another suggested guy that could be right up there in contention for this tour, as we see the likes of Keast from Invercargill, of course, rides for Vink here in the Transport Engineering Southland Deep South team.
Yeah, quite a few of the lads from the Rush Velo Ridley team, the Auckland-based squad, Christian Rush there driving things along. Obviously the son of Darian Rush, the famous lad who used to race with us all back in the 90s. It's great to see these guys. They're obviously organised. They've come out with a plan to attack.
So it's continued attacking here as different groups try to get themselves off the front. It's hard to establish, and we've seen this over the last couple of years here, Doug, where groups have spent a lot of time trying to get themselves off the front, but it's taking a lot harder, I should say, now for that to occur.
Yeah, Cameron Jones, we talked about these lads from the Rush Velo Ridley team. Cameron Jones from Nelson there on the front driving things along. There's number 72. He's no stranger to the front of this race either. Marcus Corley from Australia. These Australian lads that are coming over will be just relishing these conditions. It's kind of, almost too good for them at this stage. And the weather, although things are breaking up, it's not really driven by the wind. The wind hasn't been a factor so far. It's just the aggression of these riders trying to get away.
Alex Heaney seen once again. We saw him on day one there around Queen's Park. He's got himself in the mix towards the front of it here as a group now starts to try and establish itself. It looks like around 9 riders, and there go the names there coming up now. Haggerty of Southland in amongst it. Cooley, as you said. It's been a few years since he's been here. Good to see him back here. And of course he's with the Share the Road team. And also Clark, Heaney, Cooper. Well, there's an interesting name to be in the mix as well, and along with Jones.
So there we see number 93, Boris Clark. He's actually the head sports scientist in the endurance squad for Cycling New Zealand. He coaches a lot of the guys in this field also.
Michael Vink, the defending champion here, coming along. Number 1, stuck right in behind him, of course, is Campbell Pithy as lieutenant, who took out a couple of stages last year. And of course, Vink comes into this tour with always finishing within the top 10, Doug. He's going for his 4th successive tour.
Yeah, there's 42, number Paul Odlin from the PowerNet squad. These guys are veterans of this race. They've been here for a long time. They know exactly what's going on. We see a bit of confusion going on in the lead there at the back. Back in the front of the race, though, these guys are starting to settle into things, and it's really going to be an interesting time to see whether the gap increases as the day goes on.
Jelly tips,
Christmas on the beach.
jet planes,
Pavlova.
tubeless,
Gene Bannon.
bungee jumps.
Here we are, trying to outdo each other on YNZ's the best. Feel free to go outside and enjoy the view. We'll be a while.
Dan Carter's Undy campaign.
So the riders heading up towards Nightcaps at the midway point, and we've heard now there's been a crash, some 36 riders involved in it here, and one of those victims of that crash here is number 1, the defending champion, Michael Vink. And as we can see here, Doug, it looks like he's had to change bikes.
Yeah, there's been obviously a mechanical misfortune there for Michael Vink. He doesn't look that comfortable probably. He's working his way through the convoy and up into the back of the field. It looks like there that some of the other riders are going back, seeking some of their to see whether their riders are involved in that too. But that'll be a blow for Michael Vink. Bike riders don't like falling off. They're not rugby players. They don't bounce very well, and this will probably put a bit of a dent in his psyche, I would think.
Well, that's a significant amount of riders, Doug, so it'll be interesting when we ultimately hear who all the riders that are involved. But of course, number one here, Vink, he'll be pleased, I guess, in one factor that it's midway through the stage, so in terms of a bit of recovery, trying to get himself back into the play of things here with the main peloton, he'll be able to do that. But that'll be working in the favour of this lead group here as we look to them seem to be settling into their paces here and opening up a decent gap.
Yeah, these guys are starting to really nail this and realising that the opportunity exists at the front of the race and not behind them. That's one of the philosophies, of course, from the New Zealand Endurance Squad. The time is out to 1:46. Attack the front. Don't be frightened to get stuck in and walk towards the challenge.
Fantastic shot there of the Southland terrain here, and some 20 odd degrees for these riders here. It's not what they're expecting to experience here in Southland. Of course, they're used to the side winds, the hail and everything else, but today instead they got the sunshine and about 5 kilometres worth of gravel.
There's some hearts and some mouths here. These bikes are designed for smooth roads. They'll have changed their equipment, their tyre choice, their wheel choice, but this is bone-jarring and teeth-rattling stuff here. The time now is 5:54. There's been a huge blow put in by this front group. At the front, of course, is the boy we've been talking about, Boris Clark from Quality Food Southland, Nick Morris, the team manager, and Cam Scott, the team sponsor, and the following support vans will be just absolutely thrilled with this. They'll have put a lot of time and effort into working this out, but Boris Clark here is really showing these boys how to sit at the front and ride tempo up a gravel road.
So this section of gravel introduced in 2021, they've brought it back again this year for the riders. I don't know if some of them will be too happy about that there, Doug. Of course, not only is it the gravel they've got to contend with, but it's also a decent climb up to the top for the first of the King of the Mountains points, as we see 3 riders who have snuck off the front of the main peloton trying to shut things down.
Yeah, Ben Oliver here, you can see the distinctive yellow jersey, the Creation Signs Mitre 2 Tour leader at this stage. He will be completely accustomed to these conditions. Of course, he's a mountain biker. He won a silver medal at the Commonwealth Games, of course, this year. He's starting to make his presence felt, but the gap that the front group have and the distance left, this is going to be a mighty chase from these guys to try and shut this back.
This front group also now starting to splinter as they make their way up towards the first lot of these points here. And 2 riders are starting to get themselves a bit clear on the remainder of their group. Max Campbell here, number 61, trying to drive things there and pick up the first lot of points and potentially try and get himself into the polka dot. But it looks like Heaney who's going to do that as he surges to the line. He'll pick up maximum points here on that first climb of the day.
Outstanding. The sprint finishes at the top of these climbs for preems is like a stage finish for these guys that really shows you how dedicated they are. The chasing group are starting to splinter. Ben Oliver put a big effort in up that climb and blew things apart a wee bit, but these boys really now are going to have to form up and put in a serious chase to make some inroads into that front group.
Also within this group is Josh Burnett. He had a shocker last time round in this particular climb last year, where he had mechanical a couple of times, which paid to his overall contentions for the tour. But he's made the break here to try and get across to this leading group of 4.
You can see here a close-up of Max Campbell, the Australian boy from the Business South cycling team. He's starting to roll his head a wee bit as you go further back in this front group. There's one of the other riders starting to show signs of a wee bit of fatigue. They've got a lot of work to do, that front group, because the chasing group here are really starting to get organised.
And it's incredible to see the tour leader in the yellow there, Ben Oliver, driving things there with Burnett. Looking right at the back of the group here is the man from Switzerland, Donzi there. So it's a bit of an international flavour, of course, in this year's tour, with riders from all over the world, and a few of them, including a couple of Australians, have made the junction to the front.
Yeah, they're really starting to try and carry on and get through. The lead group now is only 1:30. I see there Michael Talkler from the Quality Food Southland team. He won't be rolling through at all. You can see him here at the back. So there's a wee bit of disjoint going on. It really is lying on the shoulders of the Creation Signs team to chase it.
A great shot there of Lumsden, a traditional finish in the tour for a number of years, as the leaders now start to look at each other, a bit of cat and mouse now. Of course, they can't do too much of this. We've already seen the time starting to tumble as they reach towards the edge of Lumsden here. These four know full well they could take out a stage, but potentially could also put themselves into yellow. But it all comes down to how much of this cat and mouse game they're going to go with.
Yeah, Marcus Corley there from the Share the Road Macaulay Ford team. He's starting to have a wee bit of a fox around at the back. As you can see, Alex Heaney, he's a veteran of this race, the Spoken Cycles rider from Cambridge. But Boris Clark, he is not mucking around. He wants to stay away. He really wants this breakaway to stick, and he'll be thinking of further along in the race as the days go on.
And it's quite a difference in pace, Doug, here, with the chasing group really driving things here. They want to try and shut this down. Remember, there's also the time bonuses up for grabs as well. And more importantly, they've taken note of who's not here with them. A lot of the top contenders, including the defending champion, have missed this particular break. This could be a key moment in the tour here and a real shake-up here early in the tour for the top 10.
Yeah, we're coming right down to the last sort of nitty-gritty here of this stage. You can see the riders now all looking at each other. This is when things can either go really well or you can end up mucking around too long and the chasing group catches you, so they'll be looking over their shoulders at some stage, I would think, to make sure that's not going to occur. But we all know from this point on, this is the more traditional finish here now coming in. It is not far to go, and these boys will be starting to lick their chops thinking about the stage finish.
Yes, they're approaching about 1,000 metres as here come the chasers, and again you can see the drive going on the front here as they try to shut down things. That Wilbike team today, the Central Benchmakers Wilbike team, have been driving things all day long. Joe Cooper in there, another name from the past who's come back and has put himself in contention here along with Torkler. These guys are former stage winners. They have worn the yellow jersey, the King of the Mountains. They know what it's all about, and Ben Oliver though is the man that's going to drive them round onto the back streets into Lumsden.
Yeah, now you can see this is still a front group away. There's Boris Clark from Quality Food Southland starting to lead out the sprint. That's an awfully long time away, Julian. That's a long, long stage finish if he's going to stay away there.
Cooley of Australia now makes his move down the outside and he opens up the gap to take himself out the stage victory, the Southland District Council Stage of 166k. He'll be ecstatic with that, and now the timekeepers are out to see what sort of gap here, because the yellow jersey is under threat with that breakaway.
And Josh Burnett leads the Mitre Creation Science team in to Lumsden. They've done a huge amount of work this afternoon, those boys.
And on the outside, Michael Torkler is the man that's going to try and lead them, and he looks over his shoulder. He'll pick up the minor placings with the likes of Cooper and the man in yellow. And that has certainly put a dent in the top 10 here on day 2 of the SBS Bank Tour of Southland. The breakaway of 4 riders pick up all the spoils of the day, with Boris Clark moving into the yellow jersey, Alex Heaney picking up the Jesco Hydraulics King of the Mountains into second, while Campbell moves into third place at some 17 seconds. Nick Kirkazoo's early efforts in the stage puts him into the Harcourt Sprint Ace with 14 points from Clark and Jones. While Alex Heaney, picking up significant points in the KOM, moves into the top of the leaderboard with 16 points over Clark and Campbell. Max Campbell gets the reward of the day for the Henderson Construction under 23 with a 22-second buffer back to Joshua Kent's. While Michael Torkler, a former stage victor in this tour here, moves into the Stonewood Homes silver jersey from Cooper and Hayden. Boris Clark, with all his efforts off the front of the day, picks up another jersey with the Macleay Jewelers Most Combative. Meanwhile, Central Benchmakers Wilbike move themselves to the top of the Wednesday Cycles team classification.
Wasn't going to go on the break today, was just going to kind of sit back, see how it played out, wait for that gravel climb. Kind of didn't think the race would start until that sort of 30-40k to go mark. Then about an hour in, I was like, nah, I'm just going to get amongst it today. I'm just going to race my bike and go hard, and ended up in the break and I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. And then just didn't expect it to turn out like it did. Just unbelievable. To be honest, it's a little bit stressful because now the team's probably got to do a bit of work tomorrow.
Your SBS Bank Tour leader, Boris Clark of Quality Food Southlands.
Follow the action from this historic race with live race updates, full results and pictures at tourofsouthland.com.